Hey everybody. I just wanted to record a video to talk to you a little bit about why we blog. So why we use the daily writes, why I assign them 3 days a week, those kinds of things. Because I've gotten not very many, but a few students who I think are struggling to understand the relevance of frequent reflection. So what I'll be doing is sending out this ebook by Kathleen Yancey. She is sort of the composition guru on reflection in the writing classroom, and you can actually access and read this book online. If you're ever interested in thinking about why reflection is so important, not just in our writing classroom, but also in your life as an academic. Reflection is an academic process. So there are a couple things, and I'm not going to read you the whole book, obviously, but there are a few things I want to tell you about. And when you look into the book, if you're interested, you can see a little bit more about that. Let's talk about why we reflect so frequently first. She sums that up really well in chapter 1. She talks a bit about theory, so what kind of process that reflection ultimately is and how it fits into composition history and composition theory. But here I think is something that can be really helpful for you guys, because this is what we're doing a lot of times in our daily writes especially. It says up here, reflection then is a dialectical process by which we develop and achieve, first, specific goals for learning, second, strategies for reaching those goals, and third, means of determining whether or not we have met those goals or other goals. And it says for writing, reflection often looks like this. So goal setting, revisiting and refining, text revising in the light of retrospection, and the articulating of what learning has taken place as embodied in various texts as well as in the processes used by the writer. So let's talk about a couple of these, like goal setting, revisiting, and refining. Those are what we've been doing on our Mindful Mondays, right? So we go in, we make goals for the week. I try to encourage you to be very specific in your goal setting so that the goals are actually achievable. And then the next Monday, we revisit those goals. How are you doing on them? What are ways you're struggling? How can we celebrate the successes that you've made? So that's sort of the first level of reflection. It's just trying to figure out how you're doing and how you could be doing better. And then other things like text revising in the light of retrospection, those are some of the daily writes where I've said, think about our peer review today, right? What was most helpful from that peer review, and how can you take that into your project? When you guys are doing your daily writes there, you're forcing yourself to go and reread your peer review comments, and then think about, okay, this is the thing I want to take into the revision process, right? So it's like in retrospect, you look back at something and then you work toward revising. Just makes our work better. And then last, the articulating of learning, of what learning has taken place. These usually happen or should be happening in our unit reflections. And so that's when you're looking back at the unit as a whole and you're thinking about, okay, what has taken place? I really felt stressed and I was struggling during week 2, but I found some peace here at the end. What happened? Oh, okay, well, maybe I was participating in Rush. That was over, and I was able to buckle back down into my academics, right? So you're learning about these things that are taking place. One thing I really like that Yancey articulates well here is she says, accordingly, reflection is a critical component of learning and of writing specifically. Articulating what we have learned for ourselves is a key process in that learning, in both school learning and out of school learning, although I'm not sure the two can be or should be separated. So if you think about this, especially this idea of Mondays when we do, okay, what are academic, social, and personal goals, right? A lot of times these do not work in isolation. So if a personal goal is to get more sleep this week, then obviously that's going to affect your academic performance this week, right? So maybe we should stop thinking of these things as separate. Well, I have to have this work-life balance or this school-life balance. Maybe we can actually find a lot of insight when we observe closely our life balance, right? Because that tends to have a direct effect on how we do academically or professionally. So the last thing I'm going to leave you with is so that you can understand where we're going with these reflections. Kathy Yancey kind of breaks down reflection in 3 ways, and she offers us a chapter on each type. So the first she calls reflection and action. You can think of those as your daily rights, okay? That means in action. That day you are doing that daily right. The daily right might be what was most insightful about what we did today, right? Or what are your questions, or what are you confused about today? All right, the reason we ask you to do those daily rights on that day is because that is what's important to you right then, okay? So think about the rhetorical term kairos. Reflection and action has everything to do with this kairotic moment, right? It's how you're feeling in this moment today. So if you're making up a daily right 2 weeks later, that's not really reflection. Number one, you don't remember how you were feeling in that moment. And so it's not necessarily going to help you build on any skills. And so that's why we're asking you to make sure you do your daily rights each day. The other thing is, remember, this is a remote class. That's a little different from a strictly online class. What it means is that we do have a face-to-face component once each week, and that is your Zoom session. On top of that, we are treating it like a 3-day-a-week class. So there are responsibilities for you to do throughout the week. This is important so that you can engage with your community throughout the week. So you're not just like putting off all of your work until the end of the week, but you're just consistently working in small steps and working through your process. Remember, that's our number one learning outcome for the class, is that we're seeing writing as a process that takes time. So that's why it's important to participate in that reflection in action, as Kathy Yancey calls it. Then there's constructive reflection, which is actually where you look at past reflection and action posts, like your daily rights, and you start to garner some insight into, okay, what am I learning? Like, how am I seeing myself kind of change and evolve over time? How am I seeing myself overcome challenges, etc.? So constructive reflection, you can think of those as our unit reflections. And then lastly is reflection in presentation. So this is where you actually submit as an assignment a reflection that looks over and like critically thinks about these reflections that have happened all throughout the semester, right? And if you don't have them present, so if you're not doing your daily rights, it's going to be harder to say anything insightful about how you've evolved over the semester. You can certainly still do it, but it'll be really surface level. So lots of things like, I've really grown this semester, but you won't be able to give me any examples of how you've grown because you haven't been doing the reflection in action. You haven't been kind of figuring these things out along the way. So I hope that this helped. I'll be emailing this ebook to you if you want to look into it anymore. But I just wanted to drop this line to encourage you to take those daily rights seriously, to push into those spaces, to dig deeply into your reflections, so be as specific as you can, and especially to take those unit reflections really seriously, as those are sort of that constructive reflection piece that will really feed in well to your reflection and presentation, which is your final project for this class. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to answer them. And check out Yancey's book. It can be really helpful in understanding reflection.